Hi, and welcome to a very special Coworking, a podcast about what makes Coworking special. And this month, we're welcoming Serena Chironna. Did I pronounce that well?
That was perfect. Thank you,
Thank you very
Fanny.
much. From KINO Italy. Thank you for being here, Serena.
Thanks for having me.
And I asked because just before we went live, we were talking about how it's pronounced. And sometimes it's true that C and H are not pronounced ch, but k, depending on the language. So I learned something.
Yes, no worries. Its default is wrong because people assume, but it was perfect. Yeah,
Nice, nice. Well, I have a French name, but I'm not French, so yeah,
understand.
there's everything. Well, and this month is almost like a new year for me because this is a new video I'm testing as an introduction, and I like the music. It was very calming, and usually I like to dance in between, but yeah, each their own. And this month's topics then, KINO Italy with Serena Chironna. So I learned about it through, I was talking about Verena, who's publishing a newsletter about remote work and digital nomadism every week or so, and she made a topic about Italy and all the different initiatives. And you were telling me, Serena, that in Italy, in big cities, you might find co-working spaces, but in smaller towns or not, let's not even talk about villages. Uh, just infrastructure is more is less common. So one day you had that idea to go back to Italy from London, right? And to start your own thing. So what is Kino Italy and how did it all start?
Sure. So KINO Italy is a project that I have co-funded with my colleague Andrea. We were both expats living abroad. Andrea was living in Shanghai. We didn't know each other, but somehow life and choices brought us together. We actually met online when we were researching about ideas to launch remote work projects in Italy. And we had very
Ooh.
similar values, and we had these kind of ideas in mind that were aligned, and we decided to join
So
forces.
the two of you were from Italy and
Yeah,
maybe from
we're
the same region in Italy?
not really. So I'm from the north of Milano, where
Mm-hmm.
I'm right now visiting my family, and Andrea is from
Mm-hmm.
Tuscany. So we are from two different
Mm-hmm.
regions, but we were both
Yes.
living and working abroad. And that was
Yeah.
around, it was just after the pandemic, it's still a bit in the midst of it. It was 2021. And we were both reconsidering a bit our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And we were reconsidering living in big cities. Andrea had already made a move
Yes.
back to Italy. He was trying this,
Oh.
he made this experiment living in a small village in Tuscany. I was still in London. But I was trying to find new inspirations. I was a bit
Did
drained, I guess, like
he
many of us.
was he selling the dream of living in a small Italian villages? Did that inspire you, or were you still attached to London at that point?
I was still in London, so for me, it was
Hmm.
never I want to move permanently to a small place. I think still
Yes.
today, in the past couple of years, I have been nomading around, and I switch a bit between cities and smaller villages with Kino, and also for
Hmm.
other personal travels that I do in Europe. And I need that balance between big and
Yes.
diverse and small and tranquil. But also Andrea, when he went back to Tuscany, this smaller context, but he was missing the international community that he had in
Yes.
China. So we were both trying to find a way to bring this kind of international community and vibe to Italy, not to the big cities that we all know, to
Yes.
maybe places off the beaten path. And we were trying to find ways to do it. I think initially just for ourselves, for a personal need. We didn't want to,
Hmm.
save any village. It was just like we want to be back sometimes or forever, but we love being with international communities. How do we do this? And
Yeah,
the
having the
only
best of
Yeah,
So
the
best
two
of
work.
both worlds together and not having to choose, but do them both. Mm.
Exactly, exactly. So that was the our personal why, and then of course, like with all the kind of remote work and digital nomadism going mainstream with after the
Mhm.
pandemic, we also saw potential for our country because there was a gap. There is still a gap that we are
Mhm.
trying to fill with other initiatives. Italy is not one of the main destinations right now for remote workers. Actually, in the space, people wonder why. So we're
Really?
also trying to figure out people. You would go to in Europe, Portugal, Spain, some hubs in other countries are have taken off, and in Italy we're struggling a bit.
Mm.
So with Andrea, we started to assess options and try to understand how we can attract people.
Yeah, yeah. So that was the pandemic, and that was the beginning of your project. It's weird because I heard a lot about Sicily, and a lot of people recommending Sicily, which is only a part of Italy. So I was thinking, okay, it's developing and it's getting more and more popular. But it's true that when you think about how, at least in Europe, how much of a touristic destination Italy can be, and how many at least digital nomads are going there, it's a big difference, I think. Mm.
Exactly, exactly. We have more of a kind of a, tradition of targeting traditional tourists,
Yes.
but somehow we haven't really created a kind of cohesive offer for this new type
Hmm.
of worker and traveler. And I think things are changing. I've seen very positive signs in the past year, but definitely when Andrea and I started, like it was just 2 years ago, but it was very hard to understand what was the problem and from where to start. And we
Yes.
landed on the community aspect.
Okay.
So that was how we started to create the concept of KINO Italy. We
Hmm.
felt, well, Italy is beautiful, so the problem is not that we don't have a nice place. Obviously, we have it, but somehow it's not enough.
Yes.
And we thought about co-workings as well. But then we also thought you can have a nice co-working space and invest a lot in creating a very beautiful place. But
Hmm.
if people don't have like-minded individuals that keep them there,
Mm.
or make them return,
Yeah.
that's not what's gonna solve your problem.
Okay.
So we landed on the community building aspect, and that's how we frame the concept of Kino Italy. We want to go outside of the cities, so we prefer villages or bigger towns, but around 30,000 people in general, so not big cities during off season. We take care of all the logistic and infrastructure, checking that houses can host our community. So we put together a group of people that don't
Hmm.
know each other, but they have things in common. Either they love Italy,
in
its
the
culture.
same in the same building or in different buildings?
Normally, for now at least, we've used local apartments
Hmm.
because it's hard to find co-living spaces or existing buildings that can suit this type of
Yes.
traveler. So we prefer to use local apartments. Sometimes they have multiple rooms, so it
Hmm.
can be like a shared flat, or people might want to stay on their own.
Hmm.
But then we make sure we have a space to come together and work.
Hmm.
And that's normally our pop-up co-working space in these places where we go. So we don't have a fixed hub. For now, we have experimented different places, but we've started to see a few places are really working well, and we're going back
What were
further.
the first places you started with?
So the very first one was like the co-working per se was very spectacular. So it was in a region called Basilicata, which
Hmm.
is probably not one of the most popular places in Italy, but
Mm.
it's actually quite interesting place. It's in the south,
Hmm.
somehow between Sicily and Apulia on the other side. In the middle, you
Yes.
have this region, and the village is called Tursi. And I was researching to start something in another region close by, and then I found this digital nomad association from this town, and I was quite surprised. I was like,
It's a small town, right? But they have a digital nomad
it's
association.
like for 3,000 probably people, maybe even less with students and younger people that go out and work. So I
Mhm.
was like, wait, how can we have an association for digital nomads in this place? And basically, it was a very nice initiative of started by a guy who was working in Rome, and
Mm.
he saw this digital nomad movement arising in other places in Europe.
Yeah.
And he wanted to have a community when he would go back and visit his family and his friends in his hometown
Mhm.
during COVID. So he started this project and he asked the local municipality to provide a space to co-work with other locals when they would come back.
Mhm.
And they were given this old monastery. So it's a huge place. And
Yeah.
from outside, you see all the kind of valley. It's very, very spectacular. And they had good internet. So they used it mainly as like locals being back
Mhm.
temporarily in the town. And then I said like, hey, do you want to have an international community? And he was actually looking for attracting also people from outside in bigger numbers. So that's how we launched our first pilot in June 2022.
Did
So the
you
first place.
did you already have the idea of doing KINO Italy as it is now at that time,
Yeah.
or was that one of the steps that made you go toward what it is today?
I think that was already like the idea, the concept was that one. So we wanted to bring an international community, not necessarily close to Italians, but we knew that for Italians living in Italy, being able to work remotely is not so widespread. So we focused on an international audience.
Mhm.
Um, and we knew we wanted to have a group of around 10, 15 people. We knew we wanted to be in a small town that no one knew, and that we had to provide this kind of infrastructure. And also, another important element we were looking for was like an engaged group of locals who wanted to welcome our community. And this is, we've seen it being more and more important in our project as we grow. We want to create these connections and
Yeah.
exchanges between locals and our community.
Yeah, so the local community that is already there needs to be willing to
Yeah.
also receive those international people and be working together to include them.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yes, absolutely. To me, that makes a difference. To be honest, I would have not chosen that place with Andrea if it wasn't for someone who was really
Mm.
sharing our vision. Why would I don't have any connection to that specific place, but I want to make their project work because we share same values and we want to create a sort of difference together. And that's how it started. And we actually managed to bring 19 people there during June. And some people went back or they met in other places around Italy
Yes.
after the experience. It was a pop up of a month,
Mhm.
and they replicated this year. We didn't go there this time, we were in other places, but
Mhm.
they're trying to grow the project themselves, so that's very positive, and they still have that beautiful place.
Yeah, yeah, it's nice. So you were saying that some places are more popular than others. What kind of places are there?
You mean the one where we're going back?
Yes.
Um, so it's not necessarily because like they're nicer, like aesthetically more pleasant. They're all beautiful places. We wouldn't bring people there otherwise. But it's just also, I think, what we've learned in the past couple of years, that you have to combine this kind of ideal remote place
Hmm.
with the reality and the infrastructures that you have, and what people need to easily commute to that place and travel to that place, what people need to work without disruptions, like having stable internet connections secure for all the stay. That's been sometimes challenging because unfortunately in Italy, especially in more rural places, the infrastructure is not the most modern. There have been huge investment in the past few years to upgrade the entire connection infrastructure, but it's taking time.
Yeah.
Um, and we've learned that on
Was there
ourselves.
a time where you meant to do it somewhere, but where the infrastructure didn't follow and you had to give up?
So I'm not gonna say where in the
No
project,
names,
but
nothing, just experiences.
it did happen that we had been in conversation with some
Mhm,
destinations, and by the time the timeline was approaching, we didn't have enough guarantees that we could deliver a solid
mhm,
project, so we kind of withdrew. While the places where we go back to your question, there are places where we build strategic local partnerships that are strong, that we
mhm.
know we can rely maybe on other businesses, and we know that the local government has shown at least the intention to support us in the longer term, which is what is important in the end. Like, we don't want to go to places for 1 month. It's an enormous endeavor to bring all these pieces together. So we want to go back, and we want to build a community also locally
Mhm.
that want to take on the project in the longer run, and that what makes the project sustainable also for the locals themselves in the longer term.
So right now, it's usually pop up that last about a month, but your end goal isn't that. It's to be able to go back or to even create ongoing communities in those places, correct?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. I think
Mm.
some places we might not, and I think it will also happen beyond us, right? If a place works well and we don't want to be there in July and August because it's full of tourists, full of Italians going there for
It's too
holidays, so we
hot.
don't want to be there
There's
and
fire.
it's too hot. But some people might like it and they might decide to go back. And once you have multiple people going, then you have this community dynamics. But so in some places we see us going regularly back during the off season.
Mhm.
Other places they're a bit more off the radar. They might be more suitable for permanent hubs if you're able to deliver the basic services and infrastructure, and if you're able to build a nice community vibe, like it happened in other hubs around Europe.
What would you say give that infrastructure? Okay, you have a checklist of things people need, but what about the community vibe? How would you describe it?
Yeah, that's challenging. I think it will be different in each
Mm,
place. And I think also sometimes I wonder whether we should be more present longer term in those places
mm,
to facilitate that community building, because we've seen that when you don't find a local, even you just need one person who's really that like connector, that really wants to engage with you, and this like people coming from outside but who's also very integrated with the local setting, and
mm,
he or she wants to bring these two worlds together. If you don't have that person, you have to do it through maybe activities or setting up events with local organizations, but it takes time. So I think you need to identify a few people or organizations that have an interest in
mm,
building this longer term relationship with your projects. And what I stress now when I speak to learners, it has to be beyond the business opportunity, because obviously
mm.
the first step is I'm doing a business. I bring people to doing I don't know, to do hikes or scuba lessons, and in the Fanny, just checking that you're hearing me.
I am. Last word was about
I'm
scuba. I
losing
was looking for
the.
the following.
Can you hear me, Fanny?
I can still hear you.
Yes, you can still hear me. Super. I lost you for a few seconds. Yes, I was saying that. Yeah, so the service providers will be the first ones to be really interested in your concept. But I think you want to show so people coming in that they are welcome beyond the economic opportunities that they're bringing, because
Mhm,
that's what will make them feel part of the community, even if for some time, and they might decide to go back. And that's what
mhm,
happened, for example, in with a place we've been this year. We were in Ostuni, this town in Apulia, again in the south of Italy. We were there in April, May with a group, and then three people from this group came back in Tuscany in October, And then I was meant to go back to Stuni for an event. I had to speak to an event with local stakeholders, and they said, "Oh, we are also going back to Stuni." I was like, "What?" And they were going back because they had a nice time and they had made friendships locally, and they just wanted to extend their stay. And they would go there by themselves, which for me is great because we want to introduce people to Italy, to maybe a more authentic
Mhm.
side of it, and then people will just create those connections and live it by themselves.
Yeah, so we were talking a lot about the local providers and all the short and long-term benefits and what you need to be able to welcome that community. Then, what about the guests? Like you were saying, they're looking for that more genuine connection to a new country, a new place, and that's what brings them first, and that's what keeps them coming.
Exactly. I think in general, the way we present our projects, we really stress the
Mhm.
importance of this local experience, like really discovering a part of Italy or a side of Italy that you don't get the chance to experience if you come for a few days. If you go to a big city for a few days, if you go to Venice or Rome or Florence for a few days, you don't get the chance to really immerse yourself and having this
Mm.
more kind of slower pace type of experience and vibe about a place.
Yes.
Something that people tell me like, oh, I like that when I go groceries after a few days, the person from the shop says hi because they see people passing over and over and they're thinking like, okay, these are not people who are staying for 2 nights. Somehow I don't know who these people are, but they're sticking around. And in
Yeah,
a
the
small
same.
town you notice, right? um, I think people, I still encourage people to go to the beautiful big cities and famous spots in Italy. But if you've been there or if you love the culture and you want to really have a deep dive in the country and you can work remotely, I think projects like ours, but other beautiful initiatives that are popping up are good opportunities to do that.
Yeah. And so you were talking about how you pop up, how people are coming back, how you're going back to the same places. How do you see it from now on? Do you want to keep going to the same similar places? Do you want to try new spaces? Do you want to further a community that's with like a core people who are coming back again and again? How do you see
Yeah, good question. We're doing a lot of 2024 planning right now.
it?
So I think what we would like to do with Andrea is having a couple of hubs where we know we have good chances to build it in a bigger hub because we see dynamics even beyond the specific town where we are, but in the neighboring areas and region. We want to grow the projects there. And maybe also having locals taking over with our support so that we can't be everywhere. So if we want to grow our project and our business, we also need to expand our partnerships and collaborations so that we have also other people supporting. But we will always want to explore new places. We've concentrated in the south because we felt the opportunity for impact is higher.
Mhm.
We've started in Tuscany because of Andrea's connection, and of course Tuscany is like very appealing. Is a very appealing destination, but there are a lot of places in the north of Italy which are not mainstream at all, which would benefit from this type of projects, and they're so close to other European countries, and people could drive there, and you don't have to fly, and you can make your remote work adventures a bit like less carbon
And
heavy.
And train. I heard more and more night train. Even the Italian trains are playing some things.
Oh well, all the time I go from my parents' place from Milan to Puglia, I always take this night train. Last time there were works on the track, so we did a D route and passed from the other side of the country, and I took 14 hours, 15 with a delay.
It's
But
a long night of sleep. Hmm.
yes, I rested. It was a lot of me time without distractions. But yeah, so next year we want to continue testing our concept and exploring new places. We will be in Sicily finally, which has been, as you said, it's already a popular destination for nomads in Italy, and we want to build more there as well.
Hmm.
But we will start again with Ossuni in Puglia, and
Hmm.
maybe I can give a little preview. We want to give people the chance to learn Italian because we've seen this being
Oh yeah.
requested by our guests. A lot of them have an interest in, maybe they've already started learning Italian by themselves, or they would like to learn the language. And we think that being our project so focused on local connections, the language can be a barrier. So giving that opportunity to also improve, and or at least learn a bit of basic Italian is a nice way to kind of foster our mission of connections.
Yeah, language is part of the culture, such as cooking and sightseeing, those kind of things.
Absolutely.
Well, we're coming at the end, so before we leave it there, maybe there's something you'd like to add and we weren't able to talk about yet.
I maybe we haven't covered too much of the co-working element, which is an intriguing one when you go to this off the beaten path places.
Hmm.
What we have to do a lot of the times is like setting expectations of people. You're not in New York, you're not in London. Our co-working spaces are really like places that have not been used for a while, and then we identify them and we say, okay, there's an opportunity to give a new purpose to this place. So we
Yes.
bring connectivity there. It's going to be a simple place, but it's a place where you can gather with your community and work together, and maybe also share some, learnings about your travel or work life. So it's an important element of our projects, making sure we have a space to co-work.
Yes.
Obviously, also for that, we need to go back over and over to these places to improve what we can offer. But you will always have a desk and internet connection and some nice people to share these work days with. Um,
Yes.
so I think that's it. It's a work in progress in Italy. So I've heard people saying, "What about Italy?" Things are happening, just in a bit of a different way. and
Yeah, and it's like you said, and if it's simple, if you have the desk, the chair, the internet connection, then you can work from anywhere. That is remote work.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Uh, just one last thing. What's the best way to contact you if we want to know more about Kino Italy? What's your next pop-up experience and how we can book a spot?
For sure. So we are actually working on like launching the 2024 destinations. So we will launch them soon. Hopefully, it will be
Ooh.
our pre-Christmas announcement to our community. So the best way
Hmm.
to keep up to date with that is if you go on our website, kinoitaly.com, there is a form you can sign up to our newsletter. We will share updates through that channel.
Hmm.
We also have an Instagram channel, Kino_Italy. And if you'd like to share your experience about Italy or just ask me questions, that you can also reach out on LinkedIn, and I'll be happy to chat.
Fantastic. I add the links in the comments so that people can access them easily. Well, Serena, thank you very much for sharing all your foundation building in Italy with all that infrastructure and that community. It's super nice to hear all those initiatives.
Thanks, Fanny. It was a very nice conversation. Thanks for having me.
Well, and see you soon and have a good end of 2023. And like you were saying, we'll see each other again in 2024 with some new projects.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.